Hello, how you doing? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening whenever you may be watching this. I have a two-for video basically. One is going to be talking about a camera, and also this is a test of the video setup that I have now. As you know, you may not know, but I have a couple of videos where I've been trying to get to a video solution that I like. I'm getting closer, I believe, with this. But first, let's talk about the camera. The camera is an Argus C3. A simple old rangefinder camera. Automated nothing. Completely manual. Actually, a pretty well constructed little device, all things considered. Cost me little or nothing. I don't remember how much I paid. What happened is I had an Argus C3 before that I really liked, and I kind of wanted it again. The reason I got rid of the camera just because the thing was it was a menace. If you've ever seen an Argus C3, I wrote a review for KEH where basically I called it a brick, and that's a lovely brick, but a brick nonetheless. I skimmed the surface of a car. Luckily, I only took off the clear coat. I was able to buff that out. Scratched a I forgot the name of the company, but a very hard shell camera carrying case. Scratched the surface of that again. Not really a big thing, but this thing destroyed it. You just could not put this anywhere near anything in your camera bag. It would have to have its own dedicated little compartment safely away from everything. But it was a fun little camera. The things I didn't like were I have no problem with a basic camera, but this was even more basic than usual. Like for instance, the film back just had a simple push button release. There's really nothing to stop you from accidentally opening the back during shooting, which some I guess would deem exciting. I deemed it as problematic. Things like, usually there's some mechanism to keep you from rewinding the film. That had no such thing. Basically, once you're done with the film, you literally turn it over and start winding in the other direction. There's nothing to keep you from doing anything silly. But other than that, I liked it. I mean, it had this nice little gear design thing going on where, just like this one, where there is a focus dial in the front that gives you the distances that's actually tied mechanically to the lens, which I thought was neat. That was retained on this model, but as you can see, this has a proper closing mechanism on the bottom where basically now you have to turn and then slide off, going to a more traditional, I guess you could say, of the era rangefinder film reload experience with a door that it slides back on securely. Pressure plate. There we go. And once you finish the film, you have to actually now pull this up, and it kind of threw me. I ended up, I shouldn't admit this, but I ended up snapping off a roll of film, which turned into a little episode. That's in the Argus C4 write-up if you read that. I had a little bit of that was a user error. I can't blame the camera. But once you finish, basically you pull this up. I finished the roll when I wasn't near the instruction manuals. So now when you pull this up and lock it, it'll allow you to rewind the film. And other than that, I mean, and this from the C3, the C4 goes to f2.8 instead of f3.5. Has the same top out as the speed, the shutter speed, tops out at 1/300th of a second. So not really a big deal. But this is a camera where I don't even bother using a light meter. This is a camera, for me, is made for Sunny 16, just to go out and have fun. I basically winged it on the test roll, and all things considered, it came out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. Another thing I like about this camera over that is now you have a true newer school, one viewfinder, as opposed to the Argus C3, which had, like some of the older rangefinders have, you had one framing window and a focusing window. This now has been combined. And that's about it. I mean, for the price, you can't really go wrong. I'll have sample photos in the blog post that I link in the description. Other than that, and the setup. I mentioned that I had gone to an A7C, but this is actually a lens I've not used before. First day I've ever used it. This is a Rokinon slash Samyang 75 f1.8. I'm going to have a review coming out about this pretty soon, probably. I've already had and really liked the 85 f1.4. I had the Sony FE 85 f1.8. And I have, and you know, so my blog, I have some other portrait lenses that I like, but those are the Sony mount ones. I liked both of those lenses. Nothing really wrong with either of them, and I'll put more of my reasoning in the description in a blog post to come about this lens here, the 75 f1.8. But basically, the short is as relatively small compared to some of the larger options on the market, and price-wise, how they're pretty reasonable. To me, it didn't really fit the A7C. This 75 f1.8 seems to be a perfect fit. It's very small, it's very tidy, it goes very well with the size. I felt a little silly, honestly. I would say silly is a bit strong. It didn't feel comfortable shooting the 85 f1.4 on this camera, the A7C. Not that it wasn't performing well, it was. It did just as well as it did on the A7 III. The issue was just design-wise, it just didn't seem a good fit. I wanted to try this 75 f1.8 to see if this would be a better fit, and so far it is. Hopefully, I believe from what I can see from across the room here that the focusing is doing well. I don't have the creaky chair due to the pandemic and homeschooling. My son now has that chair, so he solved my problem for me. So now I have just an old-fashioned kitchen table chair. Upgrade, downgrade, anyway, less creaking. And that's about it. I'll be shutting this video out and posting it pretty shortly. And again, you can expect to see a review of the 75 f1.8 coming up shortly. And I already have a review up of this lovely little lens. And I'll put a link to the video in that blog post as well. Do I recommend it? I mean, for the price, yeah. I mean, you can pick this up well for under 50 bucks easily. Probably $20, $30, probably 15 if you look in the right place. But it's a solid little camera. I like it. It took a good image, and I have to say, optically, it did perform a little better than the Argus C3. Not a high bar, admittedly, but not as much haziness in the picture. The C3 could be sharp and was sharp and did produce some nice colors at times, but it required a lot of light. This lens seems to be a little more forgiving in that regard and did well in lower light situations. Where I found the Argus C3, it was difficult to get a decent image during low light or in low light. But that's about it. Have a good night. Thank you for watching.